What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of
Ball Status.
I feel like the last time we did it, it was louder.
A little faster too. Well, it could be the volume is the here, so in our headphones.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of
Ball Status.
I feel like we got to work on that.
We can work on it.
We can work on that.
I have to go watch the old one.
Bro, you are shivering over here.
Well, there's a story behind that. So this is Boss Status. This is the podcast where we talk about the business of health and the health of business and everything in between. And we got a new roadie because I guess it just got old and it broke. So we have this new system here. It's all fancy. It's got this nice colors and everything. So we had to re-record all the sounds. It came loaded with a bunch of other sounds. But our intro, we had to redo on the fly just a minute ago. So that's why it was a little bit lame. But that's okay, because we're going to bring the heat on this episode. It's going to be a good one.
This is our first ball status in a while.
So I'm here with Mr. Patrick Meaty Thighs. And
Is it that cold?
I'm here with the cuck is back. Carl. That's the creepy Uncle Carl. Frady the Third. Esquire.
Carl Frady, the mother effing third power.
So
still wanna
you
say
guys
that,
might have noticed, first of all, we've been super inconsistent in boss status. And that's for a number of reasons. But one of the reasons is Mr. Carl has been a little bit MIA over the last, it's been a year.
Over a year.
This has been a year since Carl has been here in North Carolina.
Do you remember the last time was it September?
And usually it's once a month at
I'd say
least.
it's probably September 2023.
September.
Early.
No, you came down.
I think it was
you
probably
came down
then.
afterwards,
Oh, that's true.
right after the incident. So it's almost, dude, it's like,
Oh yeah.
it could be right at a year.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to get into all that. But so that is the point of this episode. Hopefully, we will be back on track. Carl is a huge contributor to this boss status. And so hopefully we'll have him back as a regular guest. But I think we want to dive in and talk about where the heck have you been over the last year, Carl? And talk about your journey.
Yeah, and I think we start there, you share, and then I think this is the podcast for the business of health and the health of business. And then we can kind of dive into like how that has affected the health of a business too, right? And like kind of wrap it full circle. So
So, Carl,
floor is yours.
I don't even know where you're going to
I
start.
don't even know where to start either. So I will say, like, I'll be completely real with everything. And if there's jokes to be had with it, like we know that this is a good space for the jokes. So we've had some fun with this.
I had a fun one a little bit earlier.
Yeah. So
I hope it wasn't too soon.
We're gonna start bringing back the America videos, but we're gonna be just using fake plastic guns.
Water pistols. Is that okay?
yeah,
And there's gonna be a
because
disclaimer
I
on
can't
it.
use real ones. That's
Yeah,
right.
so water
That's right.
pistols. Well, there'll be a
Make sure my
disclaimer.
probation
Be a
officer.
disclaimer.
All right, well, go. The floor is yours.
All right, so September
I need
30th.
some popcorn or something. I feel like
I almost got the pretzels.
pretzels would have been good. And it's cold in
Dark
here, man.
pretzels.
That's just like crazy. Anyways,
So September 30th, 2023 is a Sunday. It's a beautiful day. I am in great spirits that day. Had dinner with my sister at her house, played cards with my niece and my nephew. Amy is there. And so by all accounts, it's a great day. I'm not in a mood. Driving home, we go to Trader Joe's, pick up some groceries, play games. We have this game we play at Trader Joe's. Who can say or guess the price of the cost of everything, and whoever gets the closest wins something. And the prizes are really good. And so so driving home, my neighborhood has a good mile to 2 mile, really 2 to 3 mile road that you're going down, 35 miles an hour neighborhood. And it's got a lane, one-way lane, but it's wide enough to account for parking on the curbs. And this happens numerous times. I've lived there at this point for 4 years, 3 years. And there's multiple times where cars are driving too fast. They will literally drive around each other They're all over your butt. This happened one night coming home with neighbors, and this guy is literally all over zigzagging. And so I'm irate at this point driving home because I have somebody tailgating me for like 2 miles down this road, 35 miles an hour. Tailgating at any point in time is not acceptable, but it's much different than being tailgated on the interstate versus your neighborhood because it's just long, drawn-out situation. Like, dude, get off my butt, right? So we get closer to the end of this road where the last, I'd say, 100 feet are turned into to 2 lanes. But well before this happens, he decides on my butt to go around me to the curb. And I flip. So I've got an MDX Type S, pretty powerful car. I floor it to get up and around him and come to a stop, and he's literally kissing my bumper. I grab my carry conceal. I get out of the car, and I head to the back of the car, and I scream, "Get the F out of your car." Like, I'm not playing around with you. I didn't ask politely. And before I go deeper into the story, I'm telling you literally what happened. I'm not asking for judgment on anybody's part. Feel free to do whatever you want. I'm not condoning my actions, and I will relay that through the story about what I learned from this. But at this part, I'm just telling you what happened, being real. So at first, he doesn't get out of the car, which I now know that is a guy I could not see in this car whatsoever. It's dropped to the ground, blacked out, no front license plate. In Virginia, you cannot have tint on your front window. It is absolutely black. You couldn't see it. This is 7:30 at night, dark. And so basically at this point, he gets out of his car. I have a holstered 9mm, so I never unholstered the gun. I never pointed at him. I'm pointing it at the hood line. I do understand from his perspective, I am pointing the gun at him. So he gets out, hands up, and I said, "Get to the back of the car." At this point, a bystander who I've never met before in my life comes up and stands literally beside me and is on the phone with 911. At that point, you can hear a 911 call where I now take the phone from the guy and I explain what's going on. I'm letting them know that I have a gun. I've asked the guy to stand behind his car. I want the police here. I'm tired of this happening in my neighborhood, is literally what I said. So at this point, the guy beside me takes the phone back. The guy that I've asked to get out of the car demanded to get out of the car, standing at the back of his car, his hands up. My wife now comes up, and at this point, I'm starting to understand a little bit more about what's going on in the scene. And I don't know if there's anybody else in the car. Again, I cannot see anything. Amy literally walks in front of me. And at this point, the guy beside me says, "Hey, he's not resisting. Why don't you put the gun away?" So I go ahead and put my gun back in my waistband again. The gun never comes out of the holster. And at this point, Amy's like, "What is going on, Carl?" And I said, "I'm tired of this happening in my neighborhood." She then proceeds to go and look in the car. It's like, "There's nobody else here, Carl." I was like, "Amy, will you just go home?" Like, I'm at this point where I'm starting to get a panic mode. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, "Carl, you're an absolute idiot." And I'm going to be the first to agree with you. There's so much wrong with all of this. Like, from the first part, it's just let him do his thing, let him go home. But to get out of your car and to point a gun at somebody and it's holstered, like, that's wrong. You can't see in a car, he could be pointing a gun back at me. There's so much wrong. I could have died. I could have killed somebody. So at this point, the bystander goes, Amy leaves, and I'm standing there with this guy. Again, we are car links from each other. He's just standing there. He says some things to me as far as like, "Hey, I'm not even old enough to have a gun. I'm new here. I'm from California. I'm military." And so at this point, I start to look at the situation as where this is my son. I've got a 24-year-old. I've got a 19-year-old, be 20 next month. And so I'm starting to now look at this situation as that, hey, I'm overtly aggressive, unnecessarily aggressive, and I'm dealing with somebody who is the age of my kids. Would I want them to be treated this way? And the answer was no. And so It was a good 10 minutes of what it felt like. I don't know how long we were standing there, but it got to the point where I walked up to him and I said, I appreciate what you do for our country. I said, I'm really sorry for what I've done, but that is not how you drive in a neighborhood. You're speeding, you're reckless driving. This is where families live. And I shook his hand, I looked him in the eye, and it wasn't a, wag his hand and roll off. I mean, I shook his hand, I looked him in the eye, and I said, I'm sorry, and let's just get out of here. So I proceed to go home. I walk in the door, and Amy is not happy.
Didn't she call 911 too?
She also
on
called
the
911.
scene. So there was 2 911 calls.
Yeah.
Then. Okay.
And
I'm surprised it just seems like a long. I mean, you said it could have been. It felt like 10 minutes.
to me, it felt like the whole thing was 10 minutes.
yeah.
And I clearly told him on 911 that, that's what it felt like at times.
yeah.
Like, because we're not speaking to each other.
Big golf, eh?
We're waiting for the cops to show up, and I'm looking. And so while I'm looking, I'm like, I don't want him to get in trouble. Like, I don't want him to get in trouble. Like, I'm really looking at this from like a father's perspective. And so I go home. Amy's not happy. She lets me have it as soon as I get to the house, and rightfully so. I was like, I got to get out of here. So I just change clothes, and I just go off for a long walk. It was probably a good 45-minute walk. And she texts me and says, hey, Carl, the cops called because I called 911. They got my number, and they've asked.
So you called 911. I thought that
Amy.
She called 911.
because 911
and
got
the
it.
bystander called.
Yeah.
And so, she texts me and says, hey, the cops called. They want to speak to you. I said, cool, I'll be home. I'm wrapping up my walk, coming back home. So I get home, and cops aren't there. Seabum root beer.
Are we looking for a sponsor?
Totally. He's
Yeah.
retired now.
It is really good.
So
Yeah.
I go and take a shower. They aren't there yet. In my head, this entire time, and again, what I did was absolutely wrong, but I thought that I was doing something right, and had no idea that my world was getting ready to be completely turned upside down. So I get out of the shower. The police officers are standing outside. They ask me what happened, and I literally tell them everything that happened. I didn't hide one detail from them. I didn't think that.
And that's when you say, I would like to speak with my attorney.
If that was another way that night could have gone, and I look back at it, and being here, I'm glad it went the way that it did. I needed that. And,
Well, yeah.
If I had not have said anything, nothing would have happened. But ultimately, they called the young man back, and the young man wanted to press charges. So I ended up getting arrested that night, and I was told that, hey, just go down to the jail. You'll get processed. We'll post bail. You'll be home. 2:00 in the morning, something like that. So 2:00 rolls around. I go to get processed, and I am not let out of jail. So you can't wear colors in jail. So I am not.
I can feel, just for the record, Carl, I can feel you. I know you're not like shaking telling this story, but like you're shivering.
Well, I'm
What?
cold, but at the same time, like
I can feel it in your voice.
I
can
have
feel
learned that when I get a little shaky and you feel it in my voice, like what I'm saying means something to me.
yeah.
Yeah, I can feel it.
Because this has happened many times, and now I just learned to embrace it.
Yeah.
You were take off all your clothes, no wedding ring. Here's an orange
They check the
jumpsuit.
cavities.
You step in the scanner that checks the cavities, but I got a wild story, and you guys already know it, and I'll share it.
Yeah.
They found something. They found something.
Not on me.
Juicy jail stories.
So I get processed. Magistrate says denied, and I get some orange flip flops that don't work or are too small. I get a jumpsuit that is too small, all orange. 2:00 in the morning, you go into this gigantic holding cell where you're waiting to be processed before they put you in a certain cell block. And I go in and everyone's asleep. All the bunks are taken. I'm given a plastic pod that's pretty much the width of my body and a little bit smaller. Not that I'm an extremely wide guy. And you're given like this 2-inch mat, maybe like we used to take naps on when we were in kindergarten, you know. And they say, grab that pod. You're given a washcloth, a towel, a cup, and a spork. And that's pretty much what you walk in there with. And so I walk right in, and I see the cement block column, and I would just lay that down. Like, I'm not talking to nobody. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. They're sloshing in my pod, piss from somebody else. You know, put my mat on top of that. They give you a sheet. There's no pillow, and I'm just laying there. And at that point,
that's when he knew he f***ed up.
Yes. It's pretty much that's the moment where it's
You're gonna have to beep that out because this is gonna be his testimony too.
You know, at that moment it's pretty much like this rock bottom. You know, I feel like I'm a good person. I feel that the majority of people that I've ever had a sincere interaction with would describe me as a good person, and you don't go to jail by accident for the most part, you know. And I knew I wasn't there by accident. And I know now I wasn't there by accident. And so at that point, like, I don't have it all figured out. And I didn't cry, you know, not around that in that situation. But on the inside, I was torn and I was crying. And like I said, God, I'm all yours because my way is just not working, you know. So I was in jail for 5 days. And
well, can I ask, stop there? Where is your relationship with God at that point, October 1st, 2023?
I'm in control, but I believe in God. Still where that's at.
Got it.
You know, it's not where it's supposed to be if you're a true follower. You know, it's still where I'm in control, and that's a big story of my life. You know, there's a lot of trauma that I went through in earlier years where through therapy, I've learned to say that those were truths that I developed based off of the mental fortitude, the life experiences that I had. And if you carry that truth that you learn at 5 years old to when you're 8 years old, it reinforces that truth. And that becomes your operating system. And well, if that is an operating system that you carry and you're 16 and something happens and you learn to deal with it the same exact way, and you're 21 and you know you're 28 and you're 38, then I've learned that I dealt with life with a truth that was completely wrong. And part of that was control. You know, I'm a control freak. People would definitely, I'm type A, you know. And so that whole thing just hit me upside the head. Like, if you think you're a good dude, what are you doing in jail?
Well, can you also talk about a little bit leading up to that? And for the record, I don't know if we can get into all this stuff. This might be a 2-part podcast, but we'll have to do another one. But I think we should save some of the jail stories for another time because some of them are great. But I feel like that would be too long for this podcast because there's definitely you could talk about those 5 days probably for a whole podcast.
Oh, yeah.
That you were in jail. So, but leading up to that incident, can you talk about like your? I don't want to say mental state. I guess it was mental state because, you know, just recently, you know, Patrick and I came up with you to visit a bunch of the stores. So Carl, if you don't know, he's the general manager of the Nutrition Corners and VP of Ops. And so he's very involved in the stores, right? That's his gig. And so Patrick and I just kind of went up to kind of get maybe a new direction for your role there, right? Because there was some, I don't know how to describe it, angst that we felt that you were leading with. Would that be the right term, I guess, a little bit? Like,
I was angry.
Yeah.
Just angry.
Yeah. And so, like, you know, we tried to say, okay, this is the right path. Like, let's kind of redirect a little bit, and then we'll have somebody else come over here to do some of the things that were causing some of that anger. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that state going into it.
Yeah, I mean, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you know, leading up to this incident over the past few years, and it really started with COVID.
Which I think this is a part that a lot of people can relate to.
Yep. And, you know, COVID, from day one, COVID was, everything about it was wrong. And I saw it as a form of control and fear from the government. And being who I am, now in life, it's just, I don't think so. I'm not playing that game. And I was very frustrated in that other people were playing the game. whether it was a stranger or somebody that I knew. I was just like, why can't you see what I see? Like, because this is just Captain Obvious to me, that this is not about some type of an airborne or anything like that. This is strictly about trying to control us. And so I became very angry during COVID. What was happening to our company, what was happening to our people in the company, and Amy and I were, we weren't, rich, but I mean, we were fine. We weren't fine, but I mean, employees, hey guys, do you guys need money? Let me know. We'll deal with that later. Like, I don't want you guys stressing out about this. But that was really real to sit there and have CSRs like, hey, we don't have hours for you. We're just going to be able to keep the managers on board. We have to change the hours. Are we going to close stores? Like, we had all put in a ton of effort for what we had worked for to have these stores, and then this almost like, hey, in 3 months it could all be gone, and not for reasons that I thought were facts. Like, this is wrong. And so, again, getting bitter about that, and then the culture of life was changing because of technology. It's the instant gratification. It's the lack of the earn it mentality.
Well, and I think COVID pushed that even further because people were isolated. So then they went even more tech heavy, right? And then just became addicted to that type of interaction as opposed to the real human interaction.
Yeah. And I would, on the outside, I'm loving everybody, and I always do. But on the inside, I would have these conversations that I'm not proud of, and that's a part of this wonderful story. I remember literally walking into the gym and, why is that girl dressed like a hoe? Why is that guy's short so short? Why is he on his phone? It's just like I would pick people apart walking into the gym before I even set my gym bag down. And it's like, that's not who I am. Like, why am I having this conversation in my head?
And a lot of people can relate to that in the COVID era. Like, why the F do you have a mask on in your car by yourself?
Exactly.
You developed this massive divide within people.
Unfortunately, I still kind of say that when I see people with masks.
Unfortunately, I always say the same thing. There was somebody on the plane that had a mask on, and I was confused as to why. I don't understand it, and I felt negative, thoughts, right? Like,
and it's hard. It's hard to even say this to strangers, and I'm just hoping that the overall story connects with somebody, because the anger that I was feeling, I never wanted to hurt anybody. I never got out of the car with the intent of hurting that. I literally got out of a car with a holstered gun. Like, there's so much wrong with that. But that's not who I am, and it's not who I wanted to be. And I remember I dropped my gym bag and I prayed to God. I said, God, I don't want to be this person. I'm not this person. I don't want to have these thoughts. I want to love people. I want to understand people. Can you help me? And this was a couple weeks before this happened. So when I'm sitting in jail overnight, and then I'm getting to know my new cellmates over 5 days, I'm meeting people and really having raw conversations with them. And it really it was what I needed to get rid of that internal battle in my head. Like, everybody's fighting the devil.
Well, and just to go back to the state of where you were at with your walk with God, I think leading up to that, not too long before that, Pastor Brian, me, and you sat out on my porch one night. I think we were smoking cigars or something, and we had a very long talk about the Bible. And I think Pastor Brian bought you a Bible after, like a study Bible after that, right? So you started to pick up the Bible before that, but you definitely weren't like a Christ follower at that point. Yeah.
That was, I would say out loud, and even to him, I was like, I believe that, but it's like, I wasn't living it. I wasn't in the Word, It's like, I don't believe the Bible, but I've never read the Bible, you know. And so everything leading up to that moment in my personal life, things were not going the way that I wanted. I was getting bitter, having difficulties in developing a team. If you are the leader, everything is your fault. Good to great. When things aren't going bad, you look in the mirror. So I'm constantly having these internal conversations like, Carl, you suck as a general manager. Like, your stores aren't performing, your people aren't growing, your people aren't staying, you're constantly losing people. Like, I'm just having a lot of just negative conversations in my head. And there was this anger. I was just angry. I was bitter. I wouldn't say I was depressed. I've felt depression before, but I definitely was at some level of depression. And so this moment when I'm laying in that pod, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like there's just so much that you're trying to control that you don't need to worry about. And I didn't really get all that until I started going to church, until I started spending time in the Word every single day. And the gift that Jesus gave was peace. And
Well, so let's go back to, so you're in the cell. Let's talk about a little bit more of the logistics of the timeline here.
Yeah.
So you were in jail for 5 days, and at this point in time back home, we're in a whirlwind because our leader, fearless leader, Captain Carl, he's in jail. I mean, I remember Amy calling me like 5 a.m. that one day, and she's like, "Carl's in jail," and I was just like I thought I was still dreaming. Like I don't even know what is going on. And he's like, he's not getting out to the 30th or something, because there was at first.
This would have been October 1st. It was just Sunday. And so
originally it was like he's not going to be able to see the judge until like 3 weeks from now or something like that. And so we're just like,
It was a Monday.
it was a Monday by the time you guys found out, because she was digesting all of that on Sunday.
So you went to jail Saturday night.
No,
Sunday
it was Sunday
Sunday.
night. Yeah, it was Sunday night, 7 o'clock. So Monday morning is October 1st. So
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were trying to figure out what to do, and again, this can be a whole other podcast, what to do on our end. But so you were able to get in front of the judge, and you did post a bond, right?
Bail, yeah.
A bail. And then what's the timeline from there? Then you're just kind of you were charged with what? Were you charged with?
So I got out at like 1 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning. So.
Super sick.
Yep. So I to this day, 32 years of training, I have not gone more than 7 days without lifting weights. And so I had lifted that Sunday, and I went to the gym first thing in the morning on Friday morning. And I had probably drank maybe a cup of water, because it was a rusted faucet, and I did enough to get some food down. The food wasn't great, so I was hardly eating anything. I lost a little over 10 pounds. And I went to the gym Friday morning, and by Friday night, I was sick. I was sick all weekend long. And lost even more weight. It's great. So at that point, then it's like, for me, it's still somewhat in denial that, hey, guys, it's not that bad. Like it's not that bad, guys. Calm down, why are we acting this way?
Everybody relax.
It's just not being real about what just happened, And so basically, I had to go right away into counseling, and I was in counseling for 10 months. And Pastor B, I called him, and he helped in the beginning. Then I had a different therapist that I stayed with the entire 10 months. Stayed home from work, came to visit Doug, you guys here. I was here for 1 day. I couldn't be around guns, so I couldn't stay at anybody's house.
I think you slept in this room or tried to.
I slept in Sam's office. It was horrible. I got no sleep. I said, I'm going home the next day. But I wasn't in the right headspace. I was still very much selfish headspace. And so basically around late October, pretty much to the year, I took over Newport News as the store manager. So, and then assumed the role of purchasing again. So, and then mid-December, I went to court. I still don't understand it all, but I went to this first level. If they were trying to, so what I was being charged for, what I was arrested for, is a misdemeanor. Brandishing a firearm, and then a felony abduction. And that's what made it worse, is that the felony came with a gun at the same time. So it makes the felony even worse. So the first stage of the defense is trying to go and get the felony dropped. And there was some precedence that was established that my lawyer tried to use, and the judge wasn't having it. And he sentenced me to, it was over a year in jail.
It's like 12 months or something, right?
Yeah. And
that was December?
And that was in December.
Was that strictly for the misdemeanor, though?
That was
or just in total?
It was in total. So
got it. I thought it was for the misdemeanor only.
Yeah.
That's how we were so confused, because the first visit to the court, it seemed like they were only processing the misdemeanor.
We were trying to get it reduced to just a misdemeanor, and then everything could have been done right then and there.
Yeah.
So then you appealed, or
So he was like, so at that point, I thought I was literally going to jail that day. Amy thought she's like heart dropped, and the lawyer leaned over, was like, "You're just going to go in. I'm going to appeal this. We'll process. Your bond still holds. Everything's fine. Just go." And so I was like, "I don't want to go back there.
I don't want to go back in that hole.
I don't want to ever go back there again, buddy." And so sure enough, we were back there for like 10 minutes processing home. And so at that point, then we start to look at different scenarios on how we never pleaded straight away from the facts. Like, yes, I did exactly what they're going to tell you that I did. We're not denying that any of that happened. What we're trying to show you is that the mindset was not that of abduction, and the facts aren't abduction either. So basically, March rolls around, and I am sentenced to 10 years. And by the grace,
because that was an appeal. You appealed,
so appealed the first one.
Yeah.
So now we go to the circuit, and then they hear it all over again, and the witnesses and all that good stuff. And so at the end, he finds me guilty of all of it, and finds me guilty of all of it. No sentencing yet, but finds me guilty of all of it. And my lawyer says, "Hey, before you do sentence, can we?" I can't remember all the technical stuff, but can we have some time to collect the letters,
character witnesses,
characters, and stuff like that. So he gave me 4 months, which I feel I'd like to say he did it because he wanted me to further think about what I was doing. He knows I'd already spent some time in jail, but to live day by day not knowing that, hey, like this might be the last time I get to do
that sucked.
This might be the last. And then you get into the thing like, all right, if I'm going to be gone, like, hey, Franklin, you got to learn this. We're going to have this crash course. And this gets into the health of business. Like, is your business based around an individual? And you kind of want that if you are the individual. But if you're the owner, you don't want that. And if I'm operating these 12 stores, like I am either a strong point or I'm a weak point, because if you take me out, does that implode?
At any given time, if somebody gets hit by a bus or goes to jail,
yep,
can the business succeed?
Right, and that's a big thing that we learned, and it's hard to say if that's the culprit, because obviously what's going on in the world right now. But so overall, I keep to the grind with what I'm doing. It was encouraged for me to do community service, and as my faith is growing, I wanted to do community service that gave back in a way that allowed me to spread the good news.
Well, was there a time in this process, and was it before you were or you were found guilty of everything in March, or was it after, that you truly felt like you were saved? Like, was there a aha moment, or was it just a full gradual? Because I definitely saw a shift, because you were right in the beginning. It was almost like a denial, and then there was a humbling. And that's why we gave Carl the Be Humble coin at some point, when just like there was like a switch that just changed.
I don't know the moment.
A softening of your heart,
but it was
or something.
It was before February. I mean, it was around February. So basically, I wanted Brent because I wanted faith-based therapy. I wanted to be able to go back to the Bible, and so Brent really worked with me on, like, it's when you get triggered and then you respond, there is a time, and whether it's a millisecond or it's 1 year, you can own that time. You can absolutely own that time. We did things like emotional surfing,
surfing. That sounds fun.
Going back into something that didn't put me into Hulk mode, but at the same time wasn't like, oh, that's a gnat, right? So it definitely triggered some strong emotions.
Like just talking about certain things.
Yeah, but me journaling on those things, like what made me get into a funk? What made me have some adjective of anger? But what was the real purpose of that? A lot of times when we get angry, it's not what was the right in front of us that made us angry. It was something that happened before, something leading up to that. And so that's a big part, like what I explained before, is that I learned to operate based off of some of the things that happened in my childhood. And when you're a child, you feel vulnerable, you feel weak, you can't handle what's going on, you have no control. And I had issues with bullying, you know, sob story, I get it. But I mean, those are big when you're a kid and you don't have you're not equipped to deal with the bully. If I have a bully now, like I'm equipped to deal with that and I don't have to use my fists, right? But when you're a kid, like you're constantly moving. I don't have friends. You're always picked on. When you're a new kid and you go somewhere, they always pick on you. And like I did that like from birth to 87, I lived in 6 different places. It was constantly moving. It was constantly finding new friends. It was constantly being bullied. I was a late bloomer.
Were you 75?
76.
76.
You know, so it's just so those
it's like
things.
13.
You know, I dealt with bullying, and so when you look at
Everybody waved to Connor. Awkward. He doesn't know what podcasts
What's
are.
going on here?
you know, so I was able to go back and look, what did I learn about myself from that, and how did I apply that to my first marriage? How did I apply that to when my parents got divorced, right? You know, if my parents did make it, 20, 30, 40 years into marriage and got divorced when I was 30-something, I would have handled that a lot differently than when I was 18 years old, you know? Whatever it is, life equips you to deal with things. And the therapy really taught me to understand that I do have that moment and I can actually, I can own that. I can equip myself to deal with that, or I can choose anger as a default. And anger became the default, you know, feeling helpless became the default. And so he helped me with that, spending time in the Word, right? It speaks. As Brian said, it's living. And I didn't get that until I started spending time in the Word every day. And the things that I would learn from that. And then I had a moment with TJ, who connected back with me yesterday. And so
Is this the story?
The laundromat?
laundromat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm heading to the gym.
This is when? Is this
What
February?
yeah, we're at time.
We're now February 2024, March
So
2024.
most of what you're speaking to right now is pre-March.
Pre-knowing he's guilty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pre-guilty.
Yeah, pre-guilty.
When did we meet?
We met in January, and then we met also in April. And then we met again
At the
later.
at the Airbnb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Was
first
that in
time was in
January?
January.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when I witnessed you in a differently. Like you were playing praise music on your phone, and you were kind of by yourself on the couch and just kind of bobbing and singing. And
I
was
think
Doug,
that was
is this how Carl prays? Like, what is going on right now?
I think that was April, though. I think that was April. That wasn't
was
the
April?
first time. Yeah.
I mean, right after this happened, I had a huge health scare for me. You know, I'm clean bill of health in every year, right? I have nothing issues. You know, I feel like a teenager. So basically, I started breaking out in hives at work, and they would start off like on my neck and spread over to my face. At this point, I'm wearing pants, and so, but I'd get home from work and I'd have to strip down. Like there was welts all over my legs.
So weird, dude. It's stress. It's like built
Well, I
up,
was-
time, like over time, just built up neglection.
I feel
And
that's
then-
what it was. Is
And then
stress.
and then it coming to life through like a moment, right? Like or something like of what sometimes it's like usually you people get sick when they go on vacation because they're running hot and they're running stress, and then they're finally like, oh, I'm on vacation, then body just reacts and it's like, oh, it's done with that, now I got to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like your body was just finally dealing with it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I know I'm bouncing like all over the place here, but what led to that moment of feeling that peace, right? Feeling that I believed truly. As I stated when I was baptized, we kind of start off here. It's like I felt like I was in control of certain things in my life, where everything else was just out of control. And God said, you don't have control over any of that. Like I can have a response to somebody driving in my neighborhood, and I can be the man who's going to step up and finally put an end to some of this stuff. And God's like, no, that's not you. Your health, like you think you might be in control of what you've done for 32 years in the gym and all that kind of stuff, but I'll show you in one day, like you have no control. So that health scare led to bad blood. I had blood pulled. I was anemic. I got sent over to do a colonoscopy. You might have a bleeding, polyp or an ulcer. My dad's had some of those issues. I know I had a family member die of colon cancer. Then it turned into you need to get an ultrasound of some stuff going on in your midsection. So I remember going through that process. And again, I'm a guy who just doesn't do any of those things, never had to. And so to some people, like that's low level thing. But for me, that's a ton of things that I'm going through. And then I dealt with the welts for like 2 weeks and was able to start controlling it through some of the meds that they were giving me. And I don't do meds. Like this was just crazy for me to be dealing with that. And it's just like, so I'm taking a step back and I'm realizing like, hey, I don't have control with this. I don't have control with my career. I don't know how far deep we want to go into that, but like that was flipped upside down. Hey, I can take that all away from you right now, Carl. Gone. Your health, gone. So it really gave me a perspective like, well, what can I really focus on? And it's like, I can continue to do the healthy things in life, but the thing that I wasn't focusing on is I wasn't focusing on God. I wasn't focusing on the message. I wasn't focusing on trying to have a relationship with Jesus. I look back throughout life and all these things that happened to me, he was right there the whole time. And I just said, no, I'll get through this. I can do this myself. I don't need you. I'm aware that you might be there, but I'm good. I'm Carl. I've got this. I'm strong.
Funny thing is, I totally see you saying that. Like, no, I'm good.
But
What up, Jesus?
Right? But that
it.
fake facade of like I'm on my own. Like, hey, you're moving again. You got new friends. Like, I don't need any of you guys. I'll go play over here by myself. Right? It's like, I got this. I got this. Mom and dad, you guys want to split? You want to do your own dumb thing? Like, cool, I got this. I'm just going to drink and I'll be all right. Cool, I got this. My first wife wants to cheat on me. All right, cool, I got this. I don't need bitches. All you guys, right? I'm good. I don't want you. It's like, it's just always like, hey, you're on your own. You don't need to rely on anybody, And God was like, that's not the message I've been trying to teach you, And so fast forward now, February is a couple months after all this happened. And I am going to church. I'm being consistent with church. I started volunteering at church. And then I go to gym after church one day, and I'm in the parking lot, and I see some guy carrying a trash bag, clear trash bag over his shoulder, and through the parking lot, coming out of Dollar Tree. And I go to park my car, and I see him stop and kind of look at me, and I put my head down, and I look back up, and he starts to walk over to me. And
Carl, at this point, Carl's reaching for his gun that he doesn't have anymore.
No, I never got that vibe. Never got that vibe. Yeah. But yeah, probably the previous Carl, right?
Yeah.
So he said, hey, buddy, I'm trying to get my clothes washed. You got a couple bucks. And I remember telling Pastor B the story. He's like, aren't we all carrying some dirty clothes, And I was like, dude, I never carry any cash. I wish I could help. He's like, yeah, he goes, yeah, my mom typically helps me. And this is not a teenager. And he's not like a 50-year-old dude. And I want to help. And so I said, well, where's the laundromat? And it's like, if you're walking, it's got to be close by. He's like, well, send that shopping center down. And I was like, well, how about I take you over there and see if they have a credit card machine? And he was like, you do that? I was like, yeah. So I pop the trunk. We throw his dirty clothes in there. We get in. And this is like a 3-minute car ride.
You're like in the parking lot sipping pre-workout.
No, I'm done with the pre-workout. I'm ready to going to the gym.
Okay,
I'm ready to walk into the gym when this happens. And so I said, get in, let's go over and let's see what happens, right? And so I can't tell you like everything that we talked about, but the takeaway is that in 3 minutes, something crazy can happen in your life. And so we get to talking, and he's like, I'm just. I'm down on my luck right now. I don't have a car. I got a job. And typically my mom does this. I got to do this. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I've been there. I've declared bankruptcy. I understand. And he said, I've been really praying. He led the way with bringing God into the conversation. And then I talked about, I just started going to church. And he's like, well, where do you go to church? I was like, well, I go to church in Yorktown. It's like 20-some minutes away from here. And he's like, I'd really like to go to church, And so the conversation kind of died down from there. We're getting ready to pull in the parking lot, grab his clothes, go inside. They got a credit card machine where you can buy preloaded cards for washing. So I do that for him. And he's like, I can't thank you enough for doing this. And he goes, do you mind if I go to church with you sometimes? And I was like, if you want to go to church, I'll come up here and pick you up. So mind you, he lives like 25 minutes away. And so sure enough, the following weekend, We go to church.
Did you exchange numbers or is it, he had a cell phone?
I gave him a business card, you know, and so we end up going to church. After church, the first time we go work out. So I buy him a gym membership at Colonial Iron so he can work out. And I said, you got to do something good for yourself. And I said, I'm not going to buy you booze and all that kind of stuff, but this is something that you can do 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you know, and this is what you should be doing. You should be trying to take care of yourself, right? A couple weeks into this, he finds out that he's got a newborn son, like less than 2 months old. He had just gotten out of jail. And so next thing I know, I got a car seat in the back of the MDX and I'm picking him and his son up and we're going to church together. And it's crazy, you know? And he brings his son to church. We go to Newport News after church, the store. We would drink pre-workouts. We change clothes. David was the CSR at that time. He would get David to take pictures of me and him and his son, and then he would get pictures with David. You know, he got to know who David was, and it's just, you know, a 3-minute car ride, you know, just changes. And I think that was a big part as well. For me, it's like being generous is something that I can do, and I think that just trickled into what you guys picked up on as I'm leading into March, is that I don't have control over what happens in March, you know, but I said if God wants me to go to prison, then there's got to be somebody that I'm supposed to meet. So part of my 5 days, I met Rambo. Rambo was 8 years old, walked into the house to see his dad dead on the couch. So he didn't have a mother, he didn't have other siblings. Grandfather took him in. Grandfather took him in to get the money from the state, was never there, never did anything for him. He runs away from home, and the streets and gangs raise him. And prison life is all he knew. He's in and out of juvie, in and out of prison. So he's like 34, 35, 36 years old. And he's talking to me in jail, and it's like, he's like, I don't know what to do. I don't have an education. I mean, I don't know these things, but I know I don't want to be in jail anymore, you know? And so we started, you know, planning like, well, what could you do if you got out? You know, it's like, well, I can cook some ribs.
Carl's like, do you know anything about protein?
You know? And so, but he would go on and on about ribs, like Bubba Gump would go on about, you know, shrimp, you know? And I mean, he got so excited. And so I gave him, you know, my phone number. I said, when you get
Rambo's
out of here,
Ribs, food truck.
Oh, no. Bad Beaches, or Smoking Bad Beaches barbecue. Beaches, not, right?
Yeah.
Beaches.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that is so clever, right? Trademark that, right? So, but that also, like, was something where, hey, I want, like, something's missing, right? I enjoy working with our team because I enjoy giving back things that I've learned. So, you know, make good decisions. Obviously, I did not, but make sure you learn something. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what I like to do with young people. It's like, I want you to be able to make good decisions, but I want you to learn something along the way. And so those things just started like lining up for me, that whatever happens, I don't have control over. But this journey that I'm on right now is just something it's hard to describe. I mean, some people might have already turned this off. I don't know. Maybe one person here connects that maybe you feel like you have, I'm good. I don't need you. You know, I don't need the world. I'm angry. I'm depressed. I'm secluded. You know, I'm wrapped up in porn. I'm wrapped up in video games. I'm wrapped up in gambling. You're wrapped up in all this stuff that you think you have control over, and you really don't, and you're missing out on the true beauty of just connecting in relationships. And those relationships can be some guy walking through a parking lot, you know.
That story, I think that story changed a lot of us, actually, that are really close with you. And that made me realize, like, wow, I think that I'm a Christian. You know, I started to question, I look at myself in the mirror when you told me that story. It's like, man, for a second there, I thought I might have been better than Carl because I'm more of a Christian, right? And then here you are through your journey now teaching me things that every time, sometimes there's that person on the street that's trying to collect something, you know, every once in a while you'll pass. And sometimes I'll pass that person and like get this gut-wrenching feeling that like I was trying to tell you to stop and at least do something, right? And and so that story that you shared changed me, and it's like, wow, like I'm learning from Carl. I'm no better than anybody, you know. And so that story to me, like I appreciate you so much for that story because it taught me a massive lesson. You know? And I think that's what, like, for your brothers to hear, that's that story that was like God's using you to then affect others, right?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. It was, I don't know the timeline. This is after March, but I'm driving home, and across the street from where we want to put the gym, there's a guy standing at the street. He's got his rollers. He's an older guy, and he's having to use the stand, roller to walk, and his ass is hanging out. And he's an older guy, and I'm driving by, and something just said, "Give him your belt." So I circle back. I go to find him.
I don't think I knew this story.
And he's got his walker. He's got a piece of wadded up pizza on the walker. His hands are covered in pizza sauce. His pants are down below his butt, and he is slow of speech. And I haven't put anything together. I'm just like, dude, how can I help you? And can I give you my belt? And so I go to give him my belt, and his pants are drenched in urine. It was yeah. And so I get his pants up, and I'm standing at a street corner of the busy road, and I'm in my head like, how could all these people drive by right now? But it was like 5 seconds ago, I just did the same thing, right? And so I get his pants up, and I go to give him my belt, but I can't get my belt around him. It's too small of a belt. And at about this time, a lady comes up to me, and she's like, "Is there anything I can do? Do you need bus fare?" Because he's standing close to a bus stop. And then shortly thereafter, 2 cops come up, and they know him by name. It's like, "You're not supposed to be here. You can't be on these buses." And the lady goes, he said, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "Well, I had a stroke a couple weeks ago." And she burst out in tears. And she's an older woman. She goes, "My father just had a stroke." And it's like, why are y'all treating him like this? And so I got a little agitated with the officer. And I said, "Well, can I give him a ride home?" And they said, "You can do whichever you want." And then I was like, "Well, it sounds to me like he just wants a ride, right?" And so I asked us, "Can I take you home? Where do you live?" And he's like, "I live down the road over here." And I was like, "All right, let's go. Let me get you home." So I had my cleaning towels in the back of the car. I put those on the seat. I got him in there. I got his walker folded up, and I give him a ride home. And he starts to tell me he's military. He lives with his brother, and he gives me a short story about him. But I get him home, and I was like, "Is there something else I can do for you? You're going to be all right, And he's like, "No, I'm good. You didn't have to do this. Thank you." And but it was just another one of them things. Like, you just don't know. Like, most people, you could say probably you shouldn't give them anything that they're just going to go buy drugs and whatever. And we don't know that, but that was one where it's just the craziest thing. Give them your belt, right? And
that's just amazing.
And
that's where God speaks, and a lot of us, tone it out, right? Like, but when you actually are in the Word and you have a relationship with Christ, you can hear Him more clear, right? That's cool. I didn't know that.
That's a great
That's
story.
amazing.
Yeah. Give him your belt.
Give him
Put
your
that
belt.
on a T-shirt.
Give him your belt.
That's great. So just to wrap this up, we're coming up on an hour. So then you were baptized. We were there. We did it in
Yorktown River.
Yorktown River. I was thinking Jamestown River. Yorktown River. That was really cool to be a part of. Pastor Brian gave you the dunk, or we all kind of gave you the dunk.
Yep.
And that was like the week before the final sentencing.
Yep.
So let's play out the final sentencing. Like, you go in there, and how did that all play out?
So at this point,
This is now July, so this is a good 9-10 months after the incident.
Yep.
He's been living in this world of limbo, and we've all been living this world of limbo along with him, like not knowing, is Carl going to jail for a long time?
Yep. So yeah, it was prepare work the best that I could. So many people stepped up, and but it was still chaos for what potentially could have happened, and it wasn't a perfect scenario. And trying to prepare with family, like, hey, if this goes to where I go to prison, like, I don't get to go home and then have a celebration and say, hey, I report back, like, I get handcuffed on the spot and boom, you go, and I don't see you. It was said that I would get a couple years to maybe a year and a half. And after the judge went through, he said he read it was like 28 character letters. He said it's probably some of the most that he's ever had one person turned in. So, that was huge to have everybody do that. But I had a lawyer who was very, very well respected in the area. instead of doing a character letter, wanted to be a character witness for me. And so that was really, really profound that he was able to do that. And so when it all came down, it was standing up there. It was just a roller coaster as he kind of goes back through everything. He was a very thorough judge, very thorough. And
Did you speak that day? You did speak.
Yep, I did speak that day, and I told him, I said, if the gentleman was there, I would want to hug him and tell him how sorry I am. If his parents were there, I would want to hug them. You know, it's like, it really did. It was just a moment of, I am just enraged, to a moment of like, this is my son standing in front of me. Like, why am I treating him like this? You know, and so as he goes through and he starts to say certain things about how we try to defend the case and this fact, and it would just kind of shed light, like, all right, cool, he's going to do this in a good way, and he'd say something else like, oh crap, he's throwing the book at me, and you know, I just remember just keep looking up, keep praying, and so he said, on the grounds of felony, I sentence you to 10 years, and I was just like, my knee buckled. Right, and my lawyer put his hand on my back, like, you got to stand up, bro. And he said, but I'm going.
Wait, so you were standing at this point?
Yeah, we're standing behind the
Yeah, so
the
like
lawyer's
you like
table.
then started to sit down, like
No, my knees just like gave out. Like, he's trying to hold me from falling.
Yeah.
Right? I just got sentenced to 10 years.
Yeah.
Like goodbye everybody. Like
Yeah.
the next time you, yeah, like all that flashed, right? And he said, I'm going to suspend all 10.
Was it that close? He said, I sentenced you
With
to
a little
10?
bit of a pause, but not like a pause where you get like 10 minutes, right? So you talk about like your life flashing before your eyes, like you like kind of like take that in when people say that, and I was like, oh, I get it. I totally get that now. You know, it's just like all these things that just popped in my head with different relationships and people that I know and love and all this kind of stuff, and like, and then he goes, misdemeanor, guilty. So I am a convicted felon.
So misdemeanor, you were guilty, and what did he sentence to you to the?
So that was that was, I can't remember what the sentencing on that was. I was
Did he
still,
suspend that whole
yeah.
thing too?
So I've got all my time suspended. I got 2 years probation, so yeah, here I am.
I got a text. I'm free.
I'm free.
I'm free.
Praise God.
Praise God.
Yeah, it's wild, you know. So you know, if someone were to listen to this, you know, I've thought about it many times. Like, what do I say? What's the takeaway?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and for me, it's just like realizing like whatever you think that you need to control is the most unimportant thing. Like, if you can truly wrap your head around the fact that death is not final, it's just not final, then you live life in just a different way. You know, I'm just so much more appreciative of the little moments, whether it's a person moment or whether it's something that I witnessed, you know, the squirrels running around in the backyard, or, you know, a sunset or a flavor of a food. You know, it's just, there's so much more to be thankful for in life than our material things that we wrap around. And then, you know, it's like, I don't care about voting for, you know, what's getting ready to come up. Like, Trump ain't saving the country, people. You know, Jesus is going to save you. Trump ain't. Like, Trump is not going to fix what's wrong with your heart. Jesus can do that.
But he would still be a better option than Kamala.
He would
just,
still be a
vote
better
Trump.
option. Yes, right? Still be a better option. But I mean, if you're a sinful person, like, what, you get a couple $100 extra in your pocket to go sin some more? Like, you're missing the point of what Jesus is all about. And so I would tell you, like, if any part of how you're feeling right now is disconnected from the world, disconnected from relationships, you're angry, you're depressed, you're egotistical, you're selfish, you care more about materialistic things, you don't have a vision to share your life with somebody, you don't have a vision to have kids, like, you're missing out. It's a beautiful journey to live, and getting old is a beautiful thing. It's funny to get older, but it's still a beautiful thing. And death is just not final. It's not. You know, this small window, this blink that we have here on this planet, is just a blink compared to what eternity with God is. And so the right to bear arms, don't care, vote, don't care. Like, I don't care about those things anymore.
And listen, this is truly a 180 for Carl. Like, homeboy, you know, loved his guns, and, you know, loved politics, but was concerned about that in the past, right? And now there truly is a night and day difference. And I know, I hope you felt it, but there was, for many years, I was praying that you'd be saved. Now, I wasn't praying for all of this to happen, trust me. But, I think there was a small part of me that was just like, God, just get a hold of him somehow, right? Yep. And it's kind of crazy how that worked. And I truly believe, like, this sucked. This past year has sucked. I lost my best friend for a long time. And, so to go through that, I think it really was a prayer answered. And I don't know if you would be the same Carl today without going through that. So praise God.
Amen.
Yep. Anything else?
No. It was
Kairos Ministry, we can talk about that next time. That's definitely a good story.
I think we need a part 2.
I think we need a part 2, and we need to get into some of the funny jail stories.
Definitely
Because-
some funny
business.
jail stories.
And how it affected
like,
business.
for a year of business.
Yep.
All right, so we're doing a part 2. When are you coming back?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. There we go. So 2 weeks. Thank you, guys. Till next time, God bless and keep crushing it.